Good evening. Good evening, Tuscaloosa. Tuscaloosa, West Alabama, Internet world, everybody out there on YouTube, Facebook, right here in downtown Northport, 2 miles away from Bryant-Denny Stadium. How are you doing tonight on a Wednesday evening, September 27th? It's been a great day right here at BamaCentral. And I hope you guys are following us at BamaCentral.com as we are covering all things Alabama. We are your Sports Illustrated home for the Alabama Crimson Tide, and I'm proud to be a big part of it, or a small part of it, and just a small part of a great team. We have a great team here at BamaCentral, led, of course, by Chris Walsh. You can follow him at Riding Walsh on the Twitter machine. Each and every day, you can follow BamaCentral at BamaCentral on Twitter, on X. You can follow us at BamaCentral SI on Instagram. You can follow us at Alabama Crimson Tide on Sports Illustrated on Facebook. Become one of the 60,000 followers following us on Facebook. We appreciate each and every one of our followers as we're putting out all kinds of content each and every day. Of course, we're a proud part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network right here on BamaCentral. You're watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. Got a couple problems that we got solved today, the last couple days. We got our Spotify link solved on the BamaCentral website. Big thanks to you, Chris Walsh, for getting that worked out for us. So if you've been looking for that at the bottom of the articles, it's going to be right there going forward as he helped me fix the articles. And we fixed the Alabama Crimson Tide. No, just kidding. No, I appreciate Chris for fixing that, and we're going to have a lot of fun the rest of the week on BamaCentral.com. So, want to encourage you to follow us at Joe Gaither 6 on all the social media sites. You can find it on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter at Joe Gaither 6. You can find it on Instagram, on Snapchat at Joe Gaither 6. We're going to be joined tomorrow by Chrissy Floyd. Chrissy Floyd's going to be joining us tomorrow to talk about the Mississippi State Bulldogs. And obviously, we're going to talk about the Mississippi State Bulldogs tonight just a little bit. But really, we're going to focus on Alabama. We're going to focus on Alabama and really have a little conversation about some of the aspects on the football team now that we are 4 or 5 weeks into the season, going into week number 5. We're going into week number 5, and it's going to be a big week. Alabama kicking off at 8 p.m. tonight, 8 p.m. on Saturday. So make sure you have your coffee, get you a little afternoon nap on Saturday. It's going to be a late night in Tuscaloosa or wherever you're watching the Crimson Tide. And make sure you jump in and check in with us on the social media sites. You can leave us a comment, question, query, and complaint right there on the social medias at Joe Gaither 6. Okay, so we're going to talk about Alabama football. We're going to talk about Deontay Lawson. We're going to talk about Kool-Aid McKinstry. We're going to talk about the Alabama offensive line. We're going to talk about Jermaine Burton a little bit. He got a lot of love today. We'll talk about Justice Haynes, and we'll finish with a little where you stand in the SEC West. And then we'll finish with the most fun. We'll have SEC Silly Sound montage, week number 4. I got it put together today. So look, we had a busy day. I was basically the point man for BamaCentral.com today. Had a lot of fun doing it, listening to the SEC coaches teleconference. We heard from Nick Saban. We heard from all the coaches, but really you only care about Nick Saban and this week, Zach Arnett. You can read their comments on BamaCentral.com, or we're just going to talk about them. We wrote about Nick Saban's comments on the 2-point conversion. We wrote about Zach Arnett, really everything Zach Arnett had to say about the Alabama Crimson Tide. You can read about it right there at BamaCentral.com. We also wrote a short little piece on Jason Jackson being named Assistant Baseball Coach of the Year last year. Really an easy choice as he led the Crimson Tide admirably throughout really a scandalous part, a really ugly scandal in the college baseball world. Obviously, you guys all know what happened with Brad Bohannon. But Jason Jackson proving his worth and proving just how valuable he was to the Alabama Crimson Tide baseball program, leading Alabama going, 13-5, 13-6. Over the course of his interim time, he won 3 SEC series, took Alabama to an SEC regional and super regional, really taking them to parts of the postseason they haven't been in a long, long time. So very, very deserved for him to be named the American Baseball Coaches Association. Yes, American Baseball Coaches Association Coach of the Year, or Assistant Coach of the Year. Excuse me, Assistant Coach of the Year. It's the first time an Alabama assistant has been named that. Now, we had a little NIL news, and we'll talk a little bit about NIL tonight. Nick Saban being asked about NIL in his Wednesday press conference. Our man Austin Hannon and Blake Byler were, and myself, I was watching that as well, participating online. Obviously, I didn't want to get over to the Naylor Stone media room because I was busy putting together SEC Silly Sound for you guys, and we'll play it later in the program. We'll close the program with SEC Silly Sound. But little NIL news for Alabama. The University of Alabama debuts a program called Alabama Always. And really made me think about the old WWE, WWF saying, then, now, forever. No, it's going to be then, now, always. Alabama Always is the newest NIL wing, newest NIL legislation, newest NIL project for the University of Alabama. And if you haven't seen it, you can read about it at BamaCentral.com. But what it is a really cool way for former athletes to take advantage of their name, image, likeness still. Obviously, look, think about it like a guy like Tim Tebow. Think about it like a guy like Greg McElroy. Obviously, Tim Tebow not at Alabama. But think about it like a guy like Greg McElroy, like a guy like Blake Sims is going to be perfect for this. A guy like Jake Coker is going to be perfect for this. Obviously, you've got fan favorites that didn't really pan out in the NFL, didn't really have NFL careers that were impressive, didn't make a whole lot of money in the NFL, but they were fan favorites, obviously, here at the Capstone. You can think about a guy like Barrett Jones. He'll be perfect for this as well. Really, former athletes will be able to make money off of the merchandise sold here at the Capstone. Obviously, if you have been to any games or any events this year, you've been able to get into the Authentic located right there at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's a very cool little spot where really all the proceeds go to name, image, and likeness and go to the athletes. And now former athletes can take advantage of really the brand that they built here at the Capstone. So really impressive, really cool. Bill Battle becomes the first athlete to sign up or be a part of Alabama Always. And then he wasn't alone. You had Dante Hightower. You had lots of other football athletes. You had Dante Hightower. Who else did I see on the press release as I pull this bad boy up? Alabama Always. Yeah, Dante Hightower. You had Dante Hightower, Marcel Darius, Reggie Ragland. Oh, your boy Johnny Musso, Sylvester Croom, Dwight Stevenson, and Courtney Upshaw have already opted into Alabama Always. But it's not just for football. Come on now. We got to spread love to everybody here at the Capstone. We have our friends Ashley Johnston, who is the current gymnastics coach, but she spent some time, and she spent a lot of time here winning national championships here at the Capstone. So she's involved in it. Herb Jones, Alabama basketball, is involved in it. You can think about all of the popular Alabama basketball players that either made it in the NBA or didn't make it in the NBA. It's going to be a great opportunity for those guys to continue to capitalize off their name, image, and likeness. And then, of course, you guys all know Haley McClenny, a great softball athlete here at the Capstone. She is opted into Alabama Always as well. So you're going to see a lot of former athletes opt into it because it seems like, at least from my outside looking in view, that Alabama Always is going to be a great way for these former athletes to continue to take advantage of the brand that they built here at the Capstone. And really it didn't seem like there was any downside. Seems like when you buy a T-shirt for Dante Hightower, if you buy a T-shirt with Dante Hightower's name on it, he's going to get some proceeds. He's going to get some licensing money for that. And think about a guy like Trent Richardson. Obviously, Trent Richardson was a very high draft pick. Drafted third overall to the Colts, third overall to the Browns, third overall to the Browns. So I think, yeah. Oh, thank you so much, Wendell. I appreciate you so much for that nice comment. Wendell Hare commenting on our show today. BamaCentral is the best in the business. I am a small part of it. It is our friend Katie Wyndham, Austin Hannon doing all the legwork. Chris Walsh as well. But yeah, Alabama Always sounds like it's going to be a great business venture, whether you make it into the NFL or you don't. I mean, come on. We all love Trent Richardson. We all love Eddie Lacy. Those guys had nice little rookie stints, but never really made it to a second contract. TJ Yeldon kind of in the same vein. TJ Yeldon went to the Bills and became kind of a practice squatter, not really a superstar. But they gave their all to the Crimson Tide. They gave really their bodies, their time, their life to the Crimson Tide, and it's going to be a great way for those guys to continue to take advantage of the brand that they have built here in Tuscaloosa without it really coming out of the school's pocket, and really a way for the fans to purchase gear. Everybody wants to wear a TJ Yeldon or Trent Richardson jersey, a shirt. I would love a T-shirt with Richardson on the back. They absolutely deserve it, Wendell. You're exactly right. And not only the football guys, the basketball guys, the basketball girls, the baseball guys, the softball girls. I mean, come on. There's not really a great professional opportunity in softball. I mean, yes, there's niche markets, but you got to think Jackie Traina. Oh my gosh, Jackie Traina needs to sign up tomorrow and get involved in this. Everybody remembers her leading the team, Dancing in the Rain in 2010. But what professional opportunities has she really had? So it's going to be a great way for the Alabama fan base to support their favorite athletes. Whether they are in the professional ranks or, in their post careers. Obviously, Johnny Musso hasn't played football in quite some time, but to see him out there, that 22 jersey is iconic. And obviously, you love Mark Ingram in the most recent times and Najee Harris in the most recent times. But that 22 jersey, Tony Nathan, it really was started from Johnny Musso. And so I think this is a great, great, great business idea. And when I saw the press release come through today, I was like, that is really cool. So we got that put up on BamaCentral.com. I will we'll look forward to seeing how that develops at the Authentic and online right here at the Capstone, over there at Bryant-Denny Stadium. All right, so that's kind of what the gist of my day looked like. I wrote about Jason Jackson. I wrote about both Zach Arnett and Nick Saban's comments on the SEC teleconference. I wrote about Alabama Always. I did SEC Silly Sound. Nick Saban just had a press conference, and so I wrote about his comments on NIL. And so let's talk Alabama football. Let's make this all hone in for you guys, and let's talk Alabama football. All right, so Nick Saban's press conference right about an hour ago, he announced that Deontay Lawson and TJ Ferguson are highly questionable, was the way that he put it. Highly questionable to perform or to play this Saturday in Starkville over in Davis Wade Stadium. And so, okay, you don't have TJ Ferguson. Okay, not going to be the end of the world. Kind of that 6th, 7th lineman. You'd obviously love to have the depth. You would love to have the depth. Definitely. And so you don't want to say, oh, it's no big deal. You would love to have depth in case something happens to any of the interior linemen in this weekend's game. You want to have TJ Ferguson ready and ready to go. But it sounds like that's not going to be the case. So, knock on wood, we hope for great health along the offensive line because you all know that's where it all begins. That's where everything starts for this Alabama team. You saw it in the second half. Against Ole Miss when the Alabama offensive line is clicking and is moving. They weren't even operating at an A+ level. Let's be honest. Let's be honest. They were operating at a B+, A- level. Room for improvement. Lots of room for improvement, but still the Alabama offense rolled. The Alabama offense was effective. The Alabama offense stayed in rhythm, stayed ahead of the chains, and was able to operate. And so it's going to be very important to get TJ Ferguson back very soon. But for now, no practice today and is, quote, highly questionable. And all right, my man Wendell Hayer, you're exactly right. Deontay Lawson is the bigger loss, and that's where I want to start. I want to ask, what's your confidence level in Tresman Marshall and Jihad Campbell and in Kendrick Blackshire? Because it sounds like that's going to be the trio that's going to be counted on. Go over there in Starkville. Wendell Hayer commenting for all our audio listeners, a healthy Deontay Lawson is a beast and a big key for Bama's defense. You're exactly right. That is a 1,000% correct because you have to have somebody that's going to call the signals, and it seemed like Tresman Marshall did a nice job in the last 3 quarters of the game calling the signals. But I think Deontay Lawson knows it like the back of his hand. Now, subsequently, Deontay Lawson's a physical freak out there. Yes, Tresman Marshall can play, and I think Jihad Campbell is going to be a future star on this defense. Absolutely. And I think Kendrick Blackshire is a hammer in the inside. Like, I think he brings the wood, but you don't quite have the consistency that you find with Deontay Lawson. And so what's your confidence level? You've seen Alabama's defense over the last 2 weeks only give up collectively 13 points. Okay, I know, South Florida. way bottom of the barrel competition. So, all right, you give it a little throw out the South Florida game, but still, you ended up with 4 sacks in the South Florida game, 4 sacks in the Ole Miss game, 8 together. You had 9 total quarterback pressures collectively in both of those games. You came away with 3 turnovers in both of those games. The defense looks like Bama defense. Has looked like Alabama defense that you wanted to see going into the season. Probably haven't seen it since what? 2016, 17, 15, 14, 12, 11, those eras of defense. I know. Sorry, Pete Golding. I think I really got to see the Pete Golding game plan on display when I rewatched the Ole Miss game, and they stayed in the same concepts throughout the entirety of the game, just believing in the rush 3, rush 4, 1 spy, drop 8, make Jalen Milroe beat you. And it just seemed like Pete Golding never was going to change it up. And it kind of felt very familiar from the last couple of years. But Deontay Lawson out this weekend, you definitely want him healthy for the long haul. You don't want to force him out there this week, or if he's not going to be ready. You want him out healthy for the long haul. You're going to Texas A&M next week. And I know Texas A&M just got some bad news with their quarterback situation. Connor Wigman is now officially out for the season. Jimbo Fisher confirming that on today's SEC teleconference. Connor Wigman is not going to be available the rest of the year. But is Max Johnson the best backup quarterback in the SEC? Maybe. He's at least in that conversation. He performed very, very well against Auburn when he came in relief. So you're still going to have to go against Texas A&M, Bobby Petrino, Jimbo Fisher's offense. You know what the 100 and some thousand people, the 12th man, are going to do out there in College Station. You want Deontay Lawson back. You want him back as soon as possible. Don't rush him out there right now if he's not going to be ready, because I'm sorry, Mississippi State. I'm sorry. Maybe I lack respect for what you're going to do, and we'll get into it a little bit later where I see you in the SEC tiers. But Alabama should be able to take care of business. Alabama should be able to take care of business with Tresman Marshall, Jihad Campbell, and Kendrick Blackshire. I love what I've seen out of Jihad Campbell over the last, really this past week against Ole Miss, and a little bit of rotation work with against USF. Now, for those of you who have wondered kind of where he's been, he had preseason knee scope. He had a preseason knee scope that caused him to miss really the first 2 weeks. I think Coach Saban wants to see Jihad Campbell eventually be that number 2 inside linebacker next to Deontay Lawson. With Lawson out, it provides opportunities for backups to step up and gain experience that we may need closer to the end of the season if Lawson keeps catching the injury bug. That's exactly right. And I think eventually you're going to see. Sorry, Tresman Marshall, you're very athletic. But I think Jihad Campbell plays much more physically than Tresman Marshall does. And I think he's definitely faster than Kendrick Blackshire is. Kendrick Blackshire coming down stuff in the run. When he gets his eyes zeroed in on somebody, he's going to lay the boom. And so I like watching Kendrick Blackshire play. But I think eventually, as the season progresses down the line, you're going to see Deontay Lawson and Jihad Campbell be that 1 and 1A interior linebacker pair. And so we're going to get a first look and a first crack at Jihad Campbell this coming up weekend. What's your confidence level? I'm fairly confident. Now, with that said, I'm not really a Tresman Marshall fan. I'll be honest. I'm not really a big fan of what I've seen so far through 4 weeks. He's missed a lot of tackles. He's been all over the field. He's been athletic. He's missed a lot of tackles. He jumps off sides at the end of the Texas A&M game. Maybe I'm holding that one play against him too much, but that just drives me crazy, jumping off sides at the end of the game when you're trying to get the ball back. I know the situation was very desperate at that point, and probably the game was over anyways. Just drives me crazy to think about. So that's going to be the injury standpoint, the injury update for the Alabama Crimson Tide. We will hear one more time from Nick Saban on Hey Coach tomorrow, 6:30 p.m. So he'll probably get asked again about the health update, and I bet you the answer won't be much different. I would expect to not see TJ Ferguson or Deontay Lawson over there in Starkville this weekend. All right, so let's move to a little debate that I'm seeing on social media, and you guys can chime in on all my comments. Send me a DM if you want to, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Joe Gaither 6, whatever you like. Big debate, and I think it's more fun rather than contentious. You're seeing conversations, who's the better cornerback? Is it Terrion Arnold or is it Kool-Aid McKinstry? Now I'm seeing some people say, oh, we shouldn't even be debating this. Oh, don't put one over the other. Oh, this is just for fun, people. This is a good problem to have. It's not going to be it's not a problem that one is really bad and one is really good. No, no, no. I think the corners, Coach Saban going into the fall camp said the running back room was where he had the most confidence in. I don't know, Coach. I think you might want to reconsider that and think about the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks are extremely reliable so far. Now, obviously, everything is predicated on health, and you don't really know. I don't really know what you have behind Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. Obviously, Earl Little Jr. is probably your next cornerback up. You got Des Ricks as well, kind of hanging out in that mixture. You haven't really seen Devontae Smith. I know he's really more of a safety, but you don't know what the depth is behind Terrion and Kool-Aid. So maybe that's where Coach Saban was talking about in fall camp. But as far as starters go, oh my mercy. Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold are 1A and 1A. Like you're splitting hairs, and you're splitting hairs, and you're picking and choosing who's better. Now, I think you walked into the season, everybody knew that Kool-Aid McKinstry is probably a potential top 15 overall draft pick in the coming spring, next May. He probably will be in the top 15, and he deserves it. He's a hell of an athlete. He's been really a fixture in the back end for the last 2.5 years, coming on strong in the middle of his freshman season. Remember, for a former 5-star overall recruit, former number 1 recruit in the state of Alabama, Pinson Valley High School. I believe they won a state championship his senior year, but Kool-Aid McKinstry, I think, benefits off his reputation a little bit, and therefore Terrion Arnold gets a little more action and a little more work, and I think that it's fooling the fan base just a little bit, because who are you going to throw at? If you're quarterback Jackson Dart, if you're quarterback Will Rogers this weekend, who are you going to throw at? You got to throw it at somebody. You're going to throw it at the guy that's the consensus top 15 overall pick, or are you going to throw it at the guy that, that has some question marks coming in from last season? Now, last year, I still loved Terrion Arnold. You could see the athleticism on display, and he is very, very smooth in the hips. He's very smooth in the hips. He's very good in man coverage. He's very good at sticking with his man. Last year, just a little too grabby, a little too handsy, and for all of our liking, and got beat a handful of times, namely in that Texas game and the Tennessee game and in the LSU game a couple of times. But that's just going to happen when you get thrown at all the time. So this year, he's improved. The improvement is drastic and noticeable. He's playing the ball better. He is trusting his keys better. He's obviously made a big interception in the Ole Miss game. He had the kickoff return for a touchdown erased by a holding penalty in the USF game. His athleticism is easy to see. I think if you're a quarterback, you're looking at this Alabama secondary and you're thinking, where the hell should I throw a football? I don't want to throw it at Kool-Aid, and now after 4 weeks, I don't want to throw it at Terrion Arnold either. Y'all can think back to the very first game against MTSU this year. First deep shot goes at Terrion Arnold. He turns and bats it away with the off arm, and he's done that a number of different times this year. And yeah, Kool-Aid, he had an interception in his hands against Ole Miss towards the late part of the game last week, dropped it. It was a tough play. But what was interesting, what was great about the play was Kool-Aid closed the gap on his receiver. Jackson Dart thought he had somebody. He was open. He throws it, and Kool-Aid closes the gap and almost makes the interception. Obviously, he kicks himself afterwards for dropping the ball, but he still gets the pass deflection. I'd like to see Kool-Aid a little more physical in the running game. I would, but I love both of them. My man Wendell Hare chiming in, and you can too on all of the social medias. Depends. If it's a deep ball with single coverage, I would go with Kool-Aid. But if it's a short and double coverage is a go with Arnold. If it's short and double coverage, go with Arnold. I'm with you. I like Terrion Arnold a lot. I still think Kool-Aid probably is just a hair better, a hair more talented of a player, but I like Terrion Arnold a lot, and this is a good problem for Alabama Crimson Tide Nation to have because, shoot, you're not dealing with the old Josh Jobe days. You're not dealing with the where's Eli Ricks, can he finally get on the field days. You're not dealing with, no disrespect to Anthony Averett, but you're not dealing with that level cornerback. You remember when you had Pat Surtain and he was just blanketing everyone? Well, now I think you might have two Patrick Surtains out there, just named Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. All right, so keep it moving. We'll keep it moving. Oh, offensive line rotation is my next note here on the Joe Gaither Show. And you guys are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. We're a proud part of the BamaCentral Broadcasting Network. Offensive line rotation. All right, we already talked about it. Terrence Ferguson is probably going to be out this weekend. And so from left to right, you're looking at Caden Proctor. Again, Caden Proctor, Tyler Booker. You're looking at Seth McLaughlin, Darian Dalcourt, and then J.C. Latham. Yeah, left to right. Yeah, just making sure I didn't do right to left because that's my natural nature is to go right to left instead of left to right. Coach was asked about Elijah Pritchett in the press conference today. It was asked about Elijah Pritchett and what he expects, and he basically said, "Oh, I haven't had a chance to watch the practice footage from today." And with the status of with the status of Terrence Ferguson, TJ Ferguson, I don't know what the plan is going to be with the offensive lineman of the weekend. He said we usually decide that on Thursday or Friday. So I think there's a good chance that you can see Elijah Pritchett. Elijah Pritchett played pretty well when I rewatched the ball game. Pretty well in relief of Caden Proctor. Now I think Caden Proctor played a better game this weekend than he did against USF. Oh my gosh, hard to play any worse. Hard to play any worse than he played against USF 2 weeks ago. Definitely played better against Ole Miss. Had a couple of times where you wanted to see a little bit more. He and Tyler Booker still not always on the same page, handling the end tackle stunts, whether it be the end goes first or the tackle goes first. Not really always on the same page, handling those stunts, but you're seeing improvement. You're seeing growth. And you got to remember, this man is just a freshman. He's just 18, 19 years old. I was definitely not mature enough. Obviously, I wasn't athletic enough, but I was definitely not mature enough to play high-level college football at 18, 19 years old. So I think you're going to see Elijah Pritchett some more. I think that he allows Caden Proctor to maybe take a series off and watch from the sidelines. And you know how it is when you're playing a sport. You get a little bit of time on the sidelines, a little bit of time on the bench. Not only does it whet your appetite to get back into the game, but it allows you to see the game a little bit differently. You hear basketball players that say, "Oh, I prefer to come off the bench," or different things like that. It allows you to look at your opponent. Oh, I've been lining up against that end all day long, and now he's doing X or Y or Z to my buddy Elijah Pritchett. He's been doing that to me all day. It allows you to see the game a little bit differently. And so to throw Pritchett out there a couple of times against Ole Miss, I think is very, very beneficial to Caden Proctor. And you want to continue to develop along the offensive line, depth on the offensive line. Depth is such a valuable commodity along the offensive line. If you lose a guy, oh, heaven forbid, you don't want to lose a guy right now, especially at a point where the offensive line is seemingly taking small steps forward. And so you want to see them continue to take steps forward. And the biggest piece of that is health and availability. So we're hoping that TJ Ferguson comes back very, very soon. I haven't really got an update on what exactly it was that he hurt. Now, it looked like a lower leg injury, but you're hoping to get him back very, very soon. So let's keep it going. I got wide receiver talk on the brain. First, Zach Arnett, today on the SEC teleconference, was highly complimentary of Jermaine Burton. Highly complimentary of Jermaine Burton. You can read his exact quote on BamaCentral.com. But basically, he talked about his speed and said that his speed makes everything so much more challenging because you got to play off coverage, and that opens up everything underneath. But Nick Saban, in his press conference tonight, was asked about the wide receivers and the development, and I got to eat a little bit of crow. I got to eat a little bit of, I was wrong. Because going into the year, two aspects that I was wrong on. Two aspects that I was wrong on was, first, I thought Malik Benson was going to be the leading receiver. And so far, he has been absolutely MIA. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude or be hateful, but he's been MIA. I thought he was going to be a deep threat that Alabama was going to be able to depend on. He was going to translate from the JUCO rank. Now, he still might. He absolutely still might. Still plenty of time to develop into that. But so far, we're only evaluating 4 weeks worth of production. We're only evaluating 4 weeks worth of tape. And a second wrong that I had going into the year is I was out on Jermaine Burton. I was out on Jermaine Burton for two reasons, really. One, focus. I didn't really see the focus that I wanted to see out of him last year, and I didn't think that he was going to develop it. I thought that maybe he would receive the adversity of Malik Benson and of Jalen Hale and of the rest of the freshman receivers coming into the fold, and maybe folding himself. And obviously, I didn't love what I saw from Jermaine Burton after the Tennessee game, and certain antics on social media kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But no, Jermaine Burton has been very, very mature for the most part. Now, you would have loved to have seen him caught the touchdown pass from Tyler Buchner in the USF game. It went right through his hands. Oh, go out a little bit further and secure that ball. You never know what it would have done for Tyler Buchner to have that deep touchdown pass completed. But on the whole, Jermaine Burton has been, you can say Isaiah Bond, and that's a good argument to make. But Jermaine Burton has been your most consistent wide receiver. Coach Saban tonight lamenting that the wide receivers have not been playing at the level that he wants them to. Now, admittedly so, there's been some big plays made, and Jermaine Burton made easily his biggest play in an Alabama uniform against Ole Miss this past weekend. The bomb shot in the second half that didn't go for a touchdown, but looked like it was highly offline. It looked like it was highly deep into the secondary to no one. Jermaine Burton turns his head, finds it in the air, basket catch, sliding, and really sparked the Alabama offense. It was huge, huge play, not only for the yardage factor, but for the momentum factor, the timing of the play, and the pending result. Obviously, Alabama goes on to score a bomb shot to Jalen Hale for a touchdown. And so I got to give a lot of compliments and flowers to Jermaine Burton. I was wrong on counting Jermaine Burton out of this wide receiver room. I did that based on what we saw last year. It seems like he really has embraced a bit of a leadership role with the wide receivers, and it seems like he's really embraced his opportunity here, while other receivers have regressed. So I want to what's the issue here? Why can't we get more consistency out of guys like Isaiah Bond? Yeah, you're just a sophomore, but come on, buddy, you played a lot last year. We need to see just a little 10% more out of him, and I want to see more out of Malik Benson. Maybe it's my own personal bias. I want to be right about Malik Benson. We really haven't seen a whole lot out of him. Not even a great run blocker when you put on the film. Just been kind of underwhelming. I thought the wide receiver room was going to take a big step forward this year. I thought the wide receiver room was going to take a step forward with Malik Benson, with Ja'Cory Brooks, with Isaiah Bond, with Kendrick Law. Now, Kendrick Law has gotten some opportunities, made some things happen. Ja'Cory Brooks, thanks for blocking the punt, big dog, but where have you been in the wide receiver room? Now, I know I've heard rumors and whispers that Ja'Cory Brooks hasn't been quite doing the things that he needs to do off the field to contribute to this Alabama football team. And so I want to see more out of that wide receiver room. You want to judge the quarterbacks? Fine, fair. Everybody wants to judge the quarterbacks. It's the easiest position to condemn or to praise, but you got to have good offensive line play, and you got to have consistent receiver play. You got to be able to trust your receivers. Isaiah Bond early in the Mississippi State game, in the Ole Miss game, he floats out. He runs himself right into a defender's zone. Jalen Milroe throws the ball to the inside. It becomes offline pass and becomes an incompletion. If Isaiah Bond sits down in the open gap, the pass is completed. It's a first down, and Alabama's still rolling. You got to find more consistency to help Jalen Milroe out. I mean, my man Milroe, he's not Bryce Young. I love him. I love what he can do for this Alabama football team. But you have to do the little things to help him out. And the wide receivers, in my opinion, have been hot and cold, hit or miss, feast or famine. You've had the big plays down the field, but the little things haven't quite been online, haven't quite been what you've wanted them to be from an Alabama Crimson Tide perspective. Now, one more note on specific to Alabama football, and then I want to talk about the SEC West, and then we will round it out with SEC Silly Sound Week number 4 montage. Here we go. We want to talk about Justice Haynes. Justice Haynes came into Alabama as an early enrollee, and Nick Saban ranted and raved about it. Justice Haynes showed out in A-Day. Now, I'm not sitting here trying to take any carries away from Jace McClellan or from Roydell Williams, for that matter. Both those guys have been highly consistent, have been extremely productive when they've had the football. Yeah, Jace McClellan only had about 50 yards rushing until the final two drives and ended with over 100 yards. Had a couple of big runs at the end of the game. But where has Justice Haynes been? He's been virtually unused throughout the first 4 weeks. Now, maybe, possibly, could be you're saving Justice Haynes for later in the year when you want to wear down. You possibly are saving Justice Haynes in the case of an injury. The injury history with Roydell Williams and Jace McClellan. Maybe you just don't want him out there yet because you just are worried about the durability of your top two guys. So far through the early part of the year, Jace McClellan and Roydell have been able to have carried the load pretty admirably, especially considering how well or poorly the Alabama offensive line has performed. I'd like to see Justice Haynes more, but that's just from a selfish perspective. I think that maybe another issue for Justice Haynes is pass protection. That's kept a lot of freshmen off the field, a lot of freshman running backs off the field, i.e., Derrick Henry, have struggled in pass protection. We've seen Jace McClellan and Roydell Williams both themselves struggle in pass protection. And if that's the best you got, then you got to wonder how much Justice Haynes is struggling in pass protection. All right, so we're right at 35 minutes, and I appreciate everybody watching us on YouTube, on Facebook, on Twitter. You're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on Amazon. This is the Joe Gaither Show on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com. We do it each and every weekday, usually around 1, but today was very, very busy, and so we're doing a late-night show, and I'm going to get some dinner in a little while. I hope you guys have had a great day, and you're on the back half of your week. Let's wrap this program up with a discussion on where the SEC West stands. What's going on in the SEC West, and where do you see Alabama stacking up? Because you all know what's going on. You all know that losing to Texas basically means you got to get to the SEC championship game at the least to have a shot at making the college football playoff. And you're looking through, you're like, okay, obviously you have a lackluster game against USF, and Ole Miss looked really good, and LSU went to Starkville and beat the brakes off of Mississippi State. And so you got to think, like, what's going on? Where does Alabama stack up in the SEC West? I wrote this out today when I was thinking about it. I think you've got, 3 tiers? I think you've got 3 tiers in the SEC West, and it's going to obviously depend on how Alabama plays on any given Saturday. I've got this broken down into 3 tiers. You can disagree with me. Feel free to disagree with me. We welcome any and all debate at Joe Gaither 6 on the Facebook, on the Twitter, on the YouTube, on the Snapchat, on the Instagram. I'll answer any and all of your DMs, accept your friend requests, and all kinds of things right there. Tier number 1. Look, it took me a second. It took me into the Ole Miss game to say whether Alabama was going to be in tier number 2 or tier number 1. But tier number 1, I think LSU and Alabama stand alone. LSU has shaken off its really, really poor game against Florida State. Florida State bullied them badly. But I think you're starting to respect Florida State and starting to maybe respect that loss for LSU, because Florida State has gone on to be a top 4 team in the country, and probably, if you're just judging off this year, probably deserves to be the number 1 team in the nation. Sorry, Georgia. I know that you are the back-to-back defending champions, but you've played literally no one. You played South Carolina. You played South Carolina and 3 no names. No disrespect to my UAB Blazers right up the road, Trent Dilfer and them boys doing something big, but come on, you're not on the level of the SEC. I think I would put Florida, if I had an AP poll vote, I'd put Florida State as my number 1 team. Off the backs of beating LSU on a neutral site and going to Clemson and beating Clemson. Yes, it was in overtime, but the first ACC team to win in Clemson since 2016, 17, something of that nature. Big wins for Florida State. Gives you a little bit more respect for LSU, even though they lost that first game. LSU goes to Starkville and beats the snot out of Zach Arnett and the Bulldogs, which should give you a lot of confidence going into this weekend's game. But last week, you, if you're LSU, you have not a lackluster game defensively, yes, but you beat Arkansas at home in Death Valley at night on the backs of 34 points. Jaden Daniels, another great performance, but your defense kind of looks a little suspect at times. But due to being 2-0 in the conference, due to being one of the favorites going into the season, I do have LSU in the number 1 tier in the SEC West. I think that they are Alabama's number 1 number one challenger right now in the SEC West. Alabama and LSU, both number one tier in the SEC West. Number two tier, I've got A&M and Ole Miss. I've got A&M and Ole Miss based off what we've seen so far. A&M, obviously, you go down to Miami and lose. That's not a very good loss to Miami. Miami might turn out to be a better team than we all expected, but not a good loss to lose at Miami. And then Ole Miss, came into Tuscaloosa and I think kind of laid down a little bit. Maybe the coach scared. I talked earlier about the Pete Golding game plan that stayed pretty much consistently throughout all four quarters. Rush 3, rush 4, drop 8 with the spy. Not really challenging Alabama up front in too many ways. Probably didn't want to get burned on the back end with the Jalen Milroe rush. And Lane Kiffin said as much. He didn't want to get burned on the back end with a Jalen Milroe bomb shot over the top, even though they did twice. I think Ole Miss, coached themselves from a scared position, from an afraid position in Tuscaloosa. Now, you don't really know what's going to be this weekend. Ole Miss is taking on LSU. I think it's right there in the Grove. Yeah, I pulled up the scores earlier. Yes, they're going to be LSU's going to the Grove. And so we'll know more about LSU and Ole Miss this weekend. Going to be a very big weekend in the SEC West. You got to pull for Ole Miss if you're an Alabama fan. If Ole Miss is able to beat LSU, goes ahead. There you go. Goes ahead and gives you a little bit of a breathing room if you're Alabama. I've got A&M and Ole Miss in that second tier, and I can't decide. On Arkansas. Going into this past weekend, I had them firmly in the third tier, the low tier with Mississippi State and with Auburn. And Auburn, yeah, they were 3-0 going into the weekend, but they went out to A&M and they looked awful. They looked atrocious. They couldn't find a quarterback that could move their offense at all. And so I don't know. I think Auburn looked just disgusting this past weekend, and I think Mississippi State has looked bad really all year long. Yes, they're in the first year of Zach Arnett, but I think that I can't decide whether Arkansas is in that second tier or in that third tier of the SEC West. Arkansas this weekend taking on Texas A&M, so we will learn a lot. We will learn a lot this weekend about what the SEC West is going to be and how Alabama's going to stack up. Now, Alabama, you got to take care of your business. Who cares if you're playing in Mississippi State and they are in the bottom tier? Who cares if they're 0-2? They got their brains beat out by LSU. They went over to South Carolina and lost a close game to South Carolina, but I don't have that much respect for South Carolina. The fighting Shane Beamers, yeah, it was a 37-30 game. It was fun. It was a close game, but I think it was two bottom dwellers in the SEC. Alabama, you still have to go take care of your business over in Starkville. It's going to be 8 o'clock on Saturday night. You can follow all of the coverage at BamaCentral.com. We're sending 4, 5, 6 people over to Starkville to cover all the action. Katie Wyndham leading all our coverage. Katie Wyndham and Blake Byler, Austin Hannon leading all of our coverage over in Starkville. Make sure you're following them on the social media machines and following BamaCentral because they're covering literally everything. We're covering all the sports: baseball, softball, basketball, men's and women's basketball, and of course, the Kings, college football, Alabama Crimson Tide, Nick Saban, and, the number 12, maybe future college football playoff team. How are you feeling about Alabama in the college football playoff? Right now, the rest of the conference, the rest of the schedule, I think is pretty favorable for Alabama. You're sitting there, you get LSU at home, the other number one team, the other top tier team in the SEC West. You've already taken out Ole Miss. You go to A&M next week. And we'll find out more about A&M this week when Arkansas goes out there. We'll find out how good they are. Yeah, they beat Auburn. Auburn looked like absolute poo. Was it Auburn looking like poo? Was it A&M looking really good? I think A&M had like 6, 7 sacks against the Tigers. They made Hugh Freeze look very, very sad at the end of the game. So, it's going to be a fun day. It's going to be a fun weekend. We're going to have a lot of fun covering it. I believe, I'm pretty confident, I'm going to be having Chrissy Freud join me on the show tomorrow. Chrissy Freud covering all things SEC and specifically Mississippi State. Joining me on the show tomorrow, writing for the Cowbell Corner. Writing for Cowbell Corner, the Fan Nation Sports Illustrated site covering Mississippi State. I'm pretty confident I'm going to have her join the program tomorrow to tell us all things Bulldogs and how, Zach Arnett's going to challenge the Crimson Tide on Saturday. So we will leave you with my favorite segment of the week, we're going to leave you with SEC Silly Sound. SEC Silly Sound, week number 4, features 2 new coaches, Mark Stoops and Clark Lee. Jump in and join the show. Jump in and get their first action on the episode. You had to bring back Eli Drinkwitz. Oh my gosh, Eli is such a star for SEC Silly Sound. Of course, the Godfather, Nick Saban, is in there. Lane Kiffin, a dejected Lane Kiffin, a dejected Hugh Freeze is in there. And Jimbo Fisher talking a million miles an hour with his friend Brian Kelly as well. So 9 coaches making appearances in SEC Silly Sound this week. And here is SEC Silly Sound. We'll talk to you tomorrow on the Joe Gaither Show. We leave you with our 9 coaches talking nonsense. SEC Silly Sound, week number 4 montage right here on BamaCentral and BamaCentral.com.
Open with the opening statement, then I'll take questions.
You know, this game, which is a rivalry game between Arkansas and LSU.
A lot of credit to Alabama.
I want to thank the fans. I mean, what an unbelievable turnout. They were so loud.
First of all, just obviously disappointed in the result.
It's 1-0 in conference. Let's move on to the next.
That's a hard-fought SEC victory.
We're in the SEC. It's a hard league, and everybody's good.
You know, they're a good football team.
But I'm really, really proud of our football team for finding a way to win the game.
And we played hard. You know, I felt like we got our cleats back in the ground and started to play with some confidence.
Happy with the victory. Can I enjoy it for 5 minutes?
Kept them off the board.
Really disappointed.
Our defense never blinked.
But I like this team. I think they fight.
I don't think he takes a playoff.
Thought they played with fight and spirit.
Yeah, I mean, they fought and fought.
I don't know. They did a good job.
Guys played hard, competed hard.
We're very happy with the win.
None of us are happy with the result.
When we got to get better.
4-0, and I've been pissed off at every press conference.
These guys are hard to play against. We won't win games when we turn it over.
Penalties certainly did not help us.
Came near to win.
We had some self-inflicted wounds.
A lot of just self-inflicted wounds.
And most of them are self-inflicted wounds.
You know, we keep sort of shooting ourselves in the foot. There's too much that we leave on the bone.
You gotta steal scores when you have a chance.
Still, it's not terrible.
Yeah, I mean, our theme this week was I Put On for Our City, for My City, you know, by Jeezy.
Yeah, he was out of rhythm.
You guys don't know what that is.
Did that really just happen?
Well, I don't care who the running back is.
That sucker is fast as lightning.
Jackson played his heart out.
Obviously, Luke has is a ball-playing son of a gun.
He's 252 pounds. You try to tackle him.
But I'm lucky I didn't get ran over.
I'm always happy to see guys make those kind of plays.
You gotta make plays on offense.
No, that's playing ball. That was some good awareness, though.
Bad execution on my part. I should have got out of the way.
You know, we ran out of timeouts.
Y'all work for the same company.
I know I'm probably telling something to you that you already know.
No, I don't know.
We do have an answer for that.
I don't know.
The answer is yes, I know both of those questions.
What were we in turnover ratio today? Positive side again?
I don't have any idea.
And we gotta find some answers.
I can't tell you that.
You guys don't have to pass math to be a writer?
I don't know if you guys wanted to, but I didn't.
I mean, that's just not smart.
Isn't that ironic, guys?
Our guy in the back's been trying to ask a question, and y'all keep cutting him off. So I'm gonna go. You're up, bud.
It's a very good question.
I got hot about that one.
There's a rotation of one.
Yeah, last year's last year. I mean, that's last year.
Today, it's the same story.
We gotta coach better.
It takes a lot of patience on my part when you score 5 touchdowns and have them called back.
It gets frustrating at times. So we have to find alternatives.
Hey, who am I?
The challenge here becomes, you know, being really sober.
They're trying. We're trying.
So that takes patience too.
Oh, we gotta coach better.
There's a lot of mistakes in there we got to clean up.
That's our job as coaches.
Maybe coach took over.
So I got a lot of things testing my patience.
You see that in his face.
You always sweat the transfer portal.
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly, ecstatic about it,
We're growing up players on the field.
That's a constant sweat that there's no air conditioning for.
Really special. Really, really special.
I want to go to battle with that group.
You can't bring a rope out there.
The clock was fast tonight.
You know, we're gonna have to turn the page pretty quick.
You have to learn that you have to go play the next play.
I'm not there yet.
You're going to go through some tough times playing quarterback in the SEC.
Can't have enough good quarterback.
Well, I don't want to play a lot.
Those are valuable lessons. Changes a game a lot when it's a 2-score game.
He's the best in the world at that.
Do 3.
We were the last one to have the football.
The football gods aren't with you. That's not Vanderbilt football.
However I answer this question, I put myself in a very difficult situation.
I've got to watch the film and see.
And we'll evaluate it when we watch the film. We got to look at the film.
Again, I'd rather watch the film. I'll tell you Monday.
It's hard for me to dissect the game from the sideline.
I don't know. I have to go back and look to see how many I felt like we gave them on the football.
I'll have to look at the film, Chris.
But again, I would rather watch the film before I say for sure.
That's football, man.
I'm going to have to get out of this press conference and get a shower and get home.